Trafficking survivors often are arrested and prosecuted for crimes related to their trafficking. That might be a crime that they were explicitly forced to engage in, or one that they felt compelled to commit as a result of the damage caused by their traffickers. This can include drug crimes, assault charges, theft charges, or other crimes related to or the consequence of their trafficking circumstances. Because we are not always looking for survivors among people charged with crimes, survivors charged with crimes often go unrecognized in court settings and suffer harm rather than receiving the support and assistance they need. MOSAICS seeks to provide court personnel with the tools they need to maximize court potential as an intervention point to disrupt the trafficking cycle. As I've said, there is no typical trafficking story. So this, what I'm about to share with you is not meant as a prototype, but it's also important to acknowledge the reality that when we're talking about human trafficking, we're talking about the lives of human beings. So I'll give you one example of a client who was hurt by court involvement while trafficked. As I mentioned, I was a public defender in New York City, and while there, I represented a client named Jennifer. When Jennifer was 18, she met a man named Mario and started dating him. At the time, she was living at home with her parents. But Jennifer's parents were horrified and embarrassed when Jennifer told them that she was pregnant, so they threw her out of the house. She and Mario ended up moving in with his aunt and uncle, who lived in a downstairs apartment in a 2-apartment townhouse. After Jennifer gave birth, Mario started staying out until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. This led to a lot of arguing. Finally, Mario's uncle told Jennifer that while she was upstairs taking care of the baby, he and Mario would be in the downstairs apartment with multiple men and women doing cocaine. Jennifer thought about leaving Mario, but with a newborn and parents that had scorned her, she had no place to go. Desperate for Mario's attention, she asked him if she could start hanging out with him at night and if he would show her how to do cocaine. She thought that joining him in his habits might remind him to care about her and their child. Soon after Mario agreed to let Jennifer come to the parties downstairs, he also started introducing Jennifer to men at the party and then leaving them alone in the room together. Jennifer later found out that these men were sometimes acquaintances, but also people to whom Mario sold drugs. The first time it happened, the man she was in the room with said that Mario had told her that she would exchange sex for cocaine. Shocked, she refused and started to leave. But when she opened the door, she saw Mario flirting with a girl in the corner of the room. In a mix of both compliance and revenge, she closed the door, went back into the room, and had sex in exchange for cocaine. This pattern repeated itself over and over again. One night, Mario found out that Jennifer had refused to do the sex act that his friend had asked her to. He dragged her out of the room by her hair and told her to go upstairs. She never refused again. It didn't take long for Mario to convince Jennifer to go out on the street. Between their 2 hefty drug habits, money was really tight. In addition, the idea of her toddler son catching a glimpse of what she was doing to make money made working on the street seem oddly safer. It was then, vulnerable out on the street, that Jennifer started getting arrested, mostly for loitering, soliciting, or possession of a controlled substance. But she was also arrested and convicted for petty larceny after Mario convinced her to steal some clothes for him, and sale of a controlled substance when Mario sent her out to make a sale he was too high to make himself. Prior to the sale case, Jennifer got the impression from her court encounters that most people there thought her case was pretty non-consequential. They explained that by pleading guilty, she would get to go home, which they seemed to assume was a good thing. As a result, Jennifer ended up pleading guilty and getting time served on nearly 20 cases over the course of 7 years. Each one of those court encounters was a lost opportunity to interrupt the trafficking cycle she was in. Each subsequent conviction added more harm, making it more difficult to get a job or apply for housing and lay the necessary foundation she needed to extract herself from the circumstances of her trafficking. Once she got arrested on the drug sale case, her record seemed to, quote, speak for itself. She pled guilty to the felony sale in exchange for 5 years probation. I met Jennifer many years after she had successfully completed probation. By that time, she had left Mario and moved to a different county to ensure he couldn't find her. Her addiction haunted her, but ultimately she picked that too. When I started to ask Jennifer about her history, her experiences of being tricked into sex work, she looked at me in shock. Nobody in a court capacity had ever before sincerely inquired about her history of trauma or the underlying reasons for her arrest. We must interrupt the cycle of re-victimization of survivors that too often play out in court settings. Court personnel face tremendous barriers inherent to the nature of human trafficking that render survivors difficult to identify in court settings and therefore to serve. One such barrier is distrust and fear. Both labor trafficking and sex trafficking survivors distrust both court settings and stakeholders, and experience fear of retribution by the court system, their traffickers, or both. As a result, they often do not divulge their trafficking status, no matter how masterfully the question is worded. In addition, many individuals who meet the legal definition of a human trafficking survivor do not identify as such. Some view themselves as lawbreakers rather than trafficking survivors. And especially once they have been arrested, the criminal court process tends to reinforce that view. A study on labor trafficking found approximately 94% of survivors understood that they were being victimized, but were not aware that what they had experienced was human trafficking, and that there were laws and protections in place for them. Survivors often blame themselves for what they describe as having been tricked, further inhibiting their ability to come forward. In addition, labor trafficking in particular is very difficult to identify. Given the relatively banal tasks and locations of labor trafficking survivors, including work in hotels, restaurants, the agricultural industry, labor trafficking is often hidden in plain sight. While the vast majority of human trafficking cases and survivors identified in criminal court settings are sex trafficking cases, anecdotal reports suggest that labor human trafficking comprises a significant portion of unreported trafficking cases. Finally, despite an increased focus on an understanding of trauma in criminal courts over the past 10 years, the incapacitating and alienating effects of trauma on survivors of human trafficking remain a huge barrier to effective identification and assistance. The trauma responses of human trafficking survivors can appear to the untrained court personnel eye to resemble everything from apathy to non-compliance. In addition, the mere mechanics of criminal court involvement, which include the application of handcuffs, the threat of or actual incarceration, total loss of agency and choice, can also re-traumatize human trafficking survivors, despite the very best efforts and intentions of criminal court personnel involved. So what do we do to fix this? MOSAICS is dedicated to providing training and technical assistance that gives court personnel the tools to, 1, identify survivors of human trafficking who are facing criminal charges, 2, respond to the needs of survivors facing charges with a range of case outcomes and a continuum of social service referrals, and 3, reduce the infliction of harm in court proceedings. The first critical element of our training and technical assistance is training court personnel to create a trauma-responsive courtroom. Trauma responsivity makes it more likely that a survivor will trust the court process and self-identify, and that courts will be able to respond appropriately to their behavior in court, and that court personnel will be able to refer the client to appropriate services. MOSAICS will also help courts develop legal service and social service responses to survivors facing criminal charges. Those responses could include diversion programs for human trafficking survivors, dismissal of charges, a referral to community partner programs. There is no one formula, and all of our training and technical assistance will be tailored to the jurisdiction in which we are serving. We will explore the proportionality of the interventions, meaning we'll ensure that survivors charged with misdemeanors are not expected to complete long or onerous programming simply because of their survivor status. We will also work with sites to explore the timing of the intervention, meaning we'll discuss whether the intervention should be an arrest, predisposition, or as a piece of the disposition. Another critical component of the training and technical assistance is identifying signs and characteristics of human trafficking survivors. To that end, our training and technical assistance focuses on survivor-centered relationship building and motivational interviewing for court personnel, including defenders, probation officers, parole officers, and judges, to foster trusting relationships that survivors and potential survivors feel safe disclosing their status. Our training and technical assistance helps courts in a number of ways. First, the training and technical assistance ensures that the criminal legal system is operating as it was meant to. No criminal court stakeholder wants to go home at night thinking that they have potentially provided, sentenced someone to jail time when in fact they were a survivor of trafficking. Receiving the training and technical assistance through MOSAICS will make court stakeholders more likely and more capable of ensuring that punishment is going to those who deserve it and those who do not have the requisite culpability for the crimes that they were involved in are not being punished or harmed by the court process. Receiving our training and technical assistance will also build and repair trust in the legal system for survivors and their families. It will also facilitate the cooperation of survivors who may have critical information for law enforcement. Ensuring that a court is trauma responsive means that the court stakeholders that the survivor encounters will be more likely to receive information not only about the survivor's trafficking status, but also information about the trafficking ring itself and how that cycle can be interrupted. Our training and technical assistance also ensures and fosters an understanding of trauma responsiveness, a practice applicable to all involved in the legal system. So our trauma training is not specific only to survivors of trafficking, though it will be highly helpful for interacting with survivors of trafficking. It also will inform responses to almost every client coming through the criminal justice system. And finally, receiving our training and technical assistance prevents re-traumatization of survivors. So our approach. MOSAICS brings together some of the nation's most experienced sex trafficking and labor trafficking experts under the umbrella, guidance, and institutional knowledge of the Justice Programs Office at American University. We have built an innovative team-based training and technical assistance initiative model. We will not be offering cookie-cutter simple solutions like introducing a single contact screener. We encourage courts to take a nuanced, complex view of human trafficking, and thus we will provide nuanced training and technical assistance. So our training and technical assistance is designed for entire court teams. Legal services are consistently among the services provided by OVC Human Trafficking Program grantees, yet there are many court personnel and survivor service providers who are unfamiliar with the unique needs and characteristics of human trafficking survivors. We recognize that training just the judges or just the attorneys or just the service providers in any jurisdiction ignores the importance of court managers, probation officers, court security, and the fact that the court system needs to work like a cohesive system to affect real change. Providing just one class of TTA, providing TTA to just one type of court stakeholder limits the opportunities to intervene in the lives of survivors. Court officers or probation officers might be the first to see a sign of human trafficking because they have regular, repeated contact with human trafficking survivors. If they know the signs of human trafficking, they will be able to intervene before the survivor is at a sentencing phase in their case. Furthermore, all court personnel play an important role in creating a safe environment and protecting against re-traumatization. MOSAICS applies a team-based approach to provide human trafficking training and technical assistance to all court stakeholders, including judges, attorneys, court administrators and parole, probation, and corrections officers. To ensure that court systems are responding as a trauma-informed unit to the unique human trafficking landscape in their unique jurisdictions, MOSAICS will bring together all stakeholders to be trained in the same manner. This way, all personnel are given the opportunity to process how the contents of the training affect each of their individual roles, as well as their relationship to the other stakeholders. The training and technical assistance will facilitate close collaboration and partnership to bridge gaps between stakeholders in the criminal legal system that were previously disconnected. Our training and technical assistance is tailored to the needs of each specific jurisdiction we work with. So we cannot expect courts to provide individualized, survivor-centered treatment if our training and technical assistance services are themselves cookie-cutter in nature. We recognize that often the challenges of identifying and assisting human trafficking survivors are complex and jurisdiction-specific. Accordingly, MOSAICS will work to develop comprehensive knowledge and understanding of each selected court prior to providing the training and technical assistance. As a result, every aspect of MOSAICS training and technical assistance is customized and tailor-made for the court being served, including the site visit agenda and the content, and the staff assigned. The resulting training and technical assistance plan will focus on building practical and applicable skills to identify and assist human trafficking survivors. While the exact training and technical assistance agenda will vary depending on the characteristics of the site, the three primary foci of the training and technical assistance will be: 1, increased identification of human trafficking survivors; 2, stronger, more survivor-centered policies and assistance in court; and 3, increased referrals to available human trafficking services. Court teams that receive a site visit will work with our staff to build a strategic plan that includes agreed upon and attainable goals with respect to identification and assistance of human trafficking survivors. Upon the conclusion of our site visit, MOSAICS will provide a detailed report to the court with discussion points, commitments, advice on implementing the plan, and next steps. This document will serve as both a reflection of the site visit and a resource for implementation. MOSAICS will schedule regular follow-up calls with each site who receives the site visit to ensure implementation. Our training and technical assistance helps to build sustainable relationships with community partners. MOSAICS training and technical assistance will work to bridge the gap between court personnel and service providers, as well as between different groups of court personnel. The training and technical assistance staff and consultants will work with the court personnel in each site to identify and collaborate with community-based partners that offer proactive, resilience-based services for human trafficking survivors, and to infuse their court practices with the same values. Training and technical assistance staff will also work with court personnel to build partnerships with organizations to which they can refer survivors for appropriate legal remedies. So, how to apply for TTA? What you will need before you apply. First, you will need a willingness to assess and change court practices and procedures. So that means an openness to the experience of having the MOSAICS training and technical assistance staff come into your court and provide you with recommendations and suggestions for how you can be more trauma responsive, more survivor responsive, and how you can tailor your responses to ensure that you are not causing harm to survivors of trafficking. This does not mean that we are coming in telling you what to do as some arm of the government. Our response is very much to seek first to understand what is going on in your court and to provide you with recommendations that will ensure that you are as survivor responsive as possible. But that does sometimes mean changing court practices, and there needs to be a readiness to change. In addition, you will need a commitment from all court staff and justice professionals who to participate in the training and technical assistance. So this includes completing a survey about court practices and procedures, which will take you about 1 hour to fill out. And it also includes interviews with training faculty, which could take anywhere from half an hour to 1 hour for interview, and being present for the entirety of the direct training and technical assistance, which could be anywhere from several hours to 3 days. We will be providing both remote and on-site training and technical assistance. The remote training and technical assistance is over the phone and over webinar platforms, whereas the on-site training and technical assistance is generally designed to be a 3-day site visit. When you apply for the training and technical assistance, you'll be given the option of saying which you would prefer to have, the remote training and technical assistance or the on-site. And based on the results of your application and our assessment of your needs, will give you a recommendation as to what type of training and technical assistance we are recommending to give you. And finally, dedication to change management over time. So again, this is absolutely something that we come in to help you with. A huge goal of our training and technical assistance is to ensure that we don't just give you a training that sounds great and then you go back to business as usual thereafter. We really are focused on ensuring that when we provide you training and technical assistance, we also give you the tools to figure out how to incorporate what you learned into your day-to-day practices and policies. And that means change management over time. It requires a commitment from everyone involved to ensure that the lessons learned from the training and technical assistance are not lost over the intervening time that passes between each of our training and technical assistance sessions. So the application process, you can apply online. The website is right up here. It's a really simple application. It should not take you very long. The application is up and live as of right now, and the application window closes on June 30th. So you have from today, May 23rd, until June 30th to fill out the brief application. This is not the 1 hour assessment. This should take you far less time. It is brief and easy to fill out. Spots are limited, so upon receiving all of the applications June 30th, we will review them and reach out to sites as necessary to gather more information. And ultimately, all sites will be notified as to whether or not they have been selected for training and technical assistance by August 30th. You can ask your questions by emailing mosaics@american.edu. And that is it for our coverage of what the MOSAICS training and technical assistance entails and how to apply for it. Please do join us for future webinars. So in addition to the on-site training and technical assistance that we'll be providing in court settings, and in addition to the remote training and technical assistance that we'll be providing over the phone and over webinar, we will be conducting quarterly webinars on critical topics related to serving the survivors of human trafficking in court settings. The two next webinars that we have coming up are on August 13th. That one is covering the process of incorporating trauma-responsive practices into the courtroom. And on November 12th, we'll be talking about the scope of criminalization of trafficking and what that means beyond prostitution.